This is a PACE production.
Hi, my name's Dr. David Gallant, and I'm here with Patrick Roddy. Patrick is the director of dance at Creighton University, and we have the privilege of having him with us to dance the Blue Danube Waltz in our next concert, the Rebirth concert in the spring. And thank you for being here with us, Patrick.
Absolutely, Dr. Gallant.
It's just an honor to have you here to be a part of this and to collaborate, and it fits with the PACE mission of collaboration between the arts. And I got to know Patrick immediately when I first got the job at Creighton University, and our relationship has blossomed. And I'm here with Patrick to ask him a couple questions about dance so that we can learn a little bit about his background and a little bit about what he's going to be doing on stage. So, Patrick, tell us a little bit about choreographing the Viennese Waltz and the waltz itself.
Yes. So the waltz is obviously a very common dance meter, especially in ballet. You know, it's very widely used. I do not pretend to be a professional ballroom dancer or an expert ballroom dancer, but I have done partner waltz dancing before and have seen enough to be dangerous, let's say, with being able to choreograph a partner dance waltz. The waltz that I'm planning for this performance will be a hybrid of a little bit of ballet movement as well as partnering waltzing movement, also with the parameters of how much room we'll have here when we're on the stage and musicians dancing around them and, you know, hopefully just giving a nice visualization of the Viennese Waltz.
So you were saying ballet movement versus dance movement. What's the difference between dance movement that you might do with a partner and like ballet movement?
My partner and I will be doing some things independently of each other, probably more than, say, you'd see in a ballet competition with the Viennese Waltz. But hopefully there will be some familiar waltzing steps that you may see, say, in a ballroom. And maybe a little less traditional, let's say.
Okay.
Very cool. You might normally see.
Great. I always admired you and think the world of your abilities. So tell us a little bit about your background in dance.
Sure. And I appreciate that, by the way. I grew up in a dancing family. My mother was a dancer, and my older brother, was a dancer. And so I never really knew anything different. My mother had already started her dance studio before I was born. Okay. And my brother was already well on his way to a lot of performing, and he eventually became a professional and lived in New York and LA. And when I got of age, I started taking ballet from the teacher at the Omaha Academy of Ballet, who also started the dance program at Creighton in the mid-1960s. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was kind of at a level where I was coming to Creighton to take my classes. That's where most of the advanced classes for the Ballet Academy were. So I ended up kind of following in my brother's footsteps. I moved to New York first and went to school for a bit at NYU and then danced professionally for about 3 years. And then he had moved to LA to follow kind of variety television and the work in that and movies and so forth. And in the early 80s, I decided to move out there. We lived together for a bit. And then I ended up staying 10 years, and I've been back in Omaha since 1992. I lost my brother and my mother and my father kind of within about 5 years, and I just decided I wanted to be back in Omaha. So I knew that I had a lot of support here. Other dance teachers in town knew me and knew my work. I did workshops here about once a year for those dance teachers. Stayed in touch with my ballet teacher as well, and within about a year, my ballet teacher asked me to come start a tap jazz program at Creighton. So I've been doing that since the fall of '93, and then have since become the director of the program.
And at Creighton, what dance do you guys offer? What styles of dance?
It's mostly theatrical styles of dance. It's a ballet-based program.
Okay.
And so we kind of put that as first priority, but then we have modern dance offered and tap and jazz as well.
Very cool, very cool. Would you say that you lean towards a specific style of dance?
I do, I lean towards the tap and jazz. Yeah, that's kind of my specialty. I have been known to do a lot of choreography with ballet with our Nutcracker and different shows that we do, but I don't really teach any of the ballet classes.
Okay.
So for those, maybe I'll just segue into one of my main adjunct teachers is Patty Zukaitis, who teaches at the Omaha Academy of Ballet as well as Creighton, and she will be my partner for this Viennese Waltz that we're going to do.
Very nice. And you were saying, we were talking earlier, you were saying that the dress that she will be wearing will be flowy and part of...
Yes. And we're kind of deciding about colors and things, but yes, she will have a nice long flowing dress to look nice as we're spinning and turning and doing whatnot.
That's great. And I've always been interested in the turning aspect and how they keep spinning and keep spinning and keep spinning, but somehow they don't throw up. They stay on their feet.
Right. Dancers use a convention called spotting, where we try to look at something for a long time and then we snap our head as we're coming around so we can kind of keep focused on things. And in waltzing, say with a partner, you can kind of focus on different parts of the room as you're going around, but focus is a big part of it. If you lose your focus, that's when you kind of tend to get dizzy. So that's one of the big things you learn in dance is how your focus helps you.
What's it like dancing with live musicians?
It is, among the best things that can happen when you're a dancer. To have the interaction with live musicians is pretty amazing. When I was a kid, what drew me into ballet was getting cast in the Nutcracker in 1968. And at that time, it was still feasible financially to use the Omaha Symphony. So I got to do my first couple, 3 Nutcrackers with the Omaha Symphony playing, which was, really exciting. I've gotten to work with great accompanists, pianists. Most Broadway shows use a live pianist in all the rehearsals, which is fantastic. In teaching, our modern teacher at Creighton uses one of the part-time faculty members, Derek Dreyer, who plays with the Omaha Symphony, to play percussion for her classes. I enjoy making the kids listen to 70s and 80s music that I grew up with because I just really enjoy that and find a wide variety of tempos and feels to dance to. But as far as performing with a live orchestra, there's nothing like it for a dancer.
When you're thinking of music to dance to, is there something specifically or something specific that you're grasping for or you're looking for, like a beat or a melody?
And that's going to vary among different choreographers, but I would say not overwhelming, but a majority of dancers and choreographers enjoy creating movement from music. Now, that's not always the case. There's certainly a lot of dance that is created for dance sake and maybe to silence or to just percussion but I really enjoy interpreting music with movement. That's my thing. And the reason I chose my friend Patty to do this with me is because we have a very similar feel musically for a waltz or for a cha-cha or for the different kinds of pieces of music. We have a symbiotic relationship in that we can almost read each other's minds.
That's great. So you guys aren't just co-workers, but you guys are very closely linked when it comes to philosophy.
Yes,
Which
absolutely.
brings me into my question. When it comes to dance, do you have a specific dance philosophy or I guess, belief in why or what dance is?
Sure. I am a person who believes strongly in the technical prowess of a dancer, and that technical prowess allowing you then to express yourself in many different ways. Dance has had a long history with human beings from very ancient times, becoming ritualistic, ways to express emotion, ways to an expression for celebrations. But I would say in the 1600s, when ballet came along, it was a way to codify movement of the human body in I'm going to say a classical way, in a similar way that classical composers gave you the subset for learning technique of music, right? There are lots of ways that people have abilities that they can move in a musical way or a creative way. There are also musicians that don't necessarily have training that can play music that they hear or that they just make up in their head and they can just play it. But ballet was a way to learn a technique to move, right? You know, that kind of continued for a couple centuries, pretty much unchecked, so to speak. Ballet kind of came along, and the Jesuits even had a lot to do with ballet's development in Louis XIV's time. I found that out through some research for Creighton, that Jesuits had a lot to do with ballets moving forward. So at the beginning of the 20th century, I think there were a lot of changes going on. You and I have talked about Stravinsky and his influence on moving away from more traditional chords and progressive things with music. So Isadora Duncan is the person who's credited with breaking away from ballet and saying, I don't want to wear the ballet slippers, I don't want to wear the tights, I don't want to wear the tutus and blah, blah, blah. I want to just wear a white smock and go barefoot and be with nature and express myself more freely. She ironically ended up kind of setting up her own technique, and the modern dance that followed her also set up technical things, but that was kind of the beginning of people being more expressive from themselves without using the strict guidelines that ballet put forward. So in the end, for your question, I am a person who really appreciates dancers that are technically sound. Most of the modern dance companies that I'm aware of worldwide, their dancers are trained in ballet and other techniques. Maybe they're jazz, maybe they're tap, maybe they're modern. But ballet is a foundation, and then other things come from that. So that's why I keep our program at Creighton. We're a performance-based program that is about the joy of taking dance class and then being able to perform.
So it's really interesting you're talking about technique and learning the basics of dance. At Creighton, do you find that you're working a lot with people that were trained in dance and then they come to you, or do you find that you're working with people that don't have any training and that are interested in dance?
Both.
Okay.
Definitely both. Probably a majority of kids that we have in our program have danced most of their lives, and they are going to go to school to do pre-med, OT, physical therapy, occupational therapy, law, other things, but they want to keep dance in their lives. Yeah. And so they are drawn to our program because they know that they can take class regularly and have a chance to perform. But we have certainly come across many students. We share a student named Alfred Ibsen that had never taken a dance class in his life when he came to Creighton. And he and I ended up by chance meeting when he was moving in. And he was already signed up in Dance 101, but we had a chance to get to know each other. I was helping him get his cello into the building on a day when he was moving in, and we just ended up kind of bonding, and he has fallen in love with dance and musical theater and is going to leave Creighton with a musical theater degree.
It's amazing.
So we've had, just both sides of the spectrum, but I'd say the majority of kids have danced before.
Fantastic. And I was going to ask you, and it was a question that I've always wanted to know. You go to a ballet company and you see these younger dancers that are in their teenage years, and then I've heard before that there is an age limit on dancing. First of all, for you, how do you stay fit? How do you keep your body fit to continue to dance throughout your life? And also, is there a certain age that you want to be in when you're to be as a professional, or can anybody dance like that?
Sure. I'm old, and I have taken care of my body as the best I can. I had very good, pretty conservative training growing up, and have not really abused my body like a lot of dancers tend to. I was never a very good acrobat or doing tricks, so my joints are still in pretty good shape. I do work out a little bit on the side for upper body stuff, but I do dance during my classes to stay in shape. I would say, lifespan of a dancer, teenagers can break into the dance world, say, especially in the ballet world, late teens, early 20s to 30 is probably a prime of your dancing life. After you turn 30, I think you start to feel more physical effects if you're doing that as your living. And probably when you hit 40, I think there are some ballet dancers, say ballet principals, that have gone into their late 30s and 40,
Wow.
but then, it kind of becomes obvious that you need to find another thing to do. In a chorus line, famously, the young man who plays Paul has had some knee surgeries, and he's auditioning for this show because he needs the work. And he takes a bad fall towards the end of the show, and he's carted away to the hospital. And the remaining auditioners start talking about what they would do if they couldn't dance, and a lot of them don't really know what they would do, and they sing the song "What I Did for Love." Mm-hmm. So, once it's in your blood, it's kind of hard to get it out. And so I really admire students who come to Creighton and they're looking at getting an education and finding a steady job.
Yeah.
You always love to see the kid who that's all they want to do is go dance, but it isn't the most sustainable thing unless you're pretty creative.
Yeah.
And that worked out pretty well for me. That I moved back to Omaha. I was about 32, and I was pretty much done with professional dancing. Break dancing was kind of becoming really popular, and variety television had kind of waned, so there was less and less for me in California work-wise as a dancer. So I morphed into teaching, and I was lucky enough to get my foot in the door at Creighton and stay there, and oh gosh, I'm close to 30 years now.
Wow.
And I've loved every minute of it.
That's great.
There's nothing more satisfying than giving back what you've learned and having students respond to that and act like sponges, and absorb what you're trying to get across to them, and then take that on and maybe teach it to someone else or perform, or
Yeah.
nothing more gratifying than that.
I was going to ask, just to get to know you even more, would you say that that you were a part of a favorite performance of yours, that there was something that you did that was like the height or the peak of your...
Yes, I've been lucky to be able to do a lot of things locally and on both coasts, internationally. But I think I have two kind of highlights. When I was a kid, my mother was kind of a Mama Rose.
Okay.
And she loved to have me show off. When we went on family vacations, we could never go without my tap shoes. I always had to dance for grandma. So we used to go to dance conventions, and I was gifted at being able to pick up tap steps at a young age pretty quickly. So I would often get noticed at big workshops where there were a lot of kids there, and the teacher would see that I was kind of getting it. And so typically at the end of the class, they would bring a kid up and they'd perform the dance. And so that kind of became my thing, that I was able to pick things up pretty quick. So we were in New York at a convention, my mom and I, and some other friends here from Omaha. And a woman taught a dance that was, I remember it being pretty hard, but I learned it, and she said, "Oh, you need to come up and we need to do that." So we performed it, and everybody was impressed and whatnot. Well, unbeknownst to me and my mother, some of the people who were running the convention talked to a man named Peter Gennaro, who was he was a guest teacher at this workshop. And he is the guy responsible for all the shark choreography in West Side Story. He was one of the two original men dancers in the number Steam Heat in Pajama Game on Broadway.
Oh my God.
June Taylor dancers, he was kind of responsible for. He choreographed a show called Irene with Debbie Reynolds in the 70s. Anyway, he was told by the women that run this convention, "Oh, you need to watch out for this young man," because he was going to be doing a show at Radio City Music Hall all about tap dance. And he wanted to have kind of a multi-generational thing with somebody young in it. So I remember him coming to my mom and I and saying, "Oh, can I see you? Can we go out in the hallway and can I show you a couple things?" And we did, and I showed him, and he said to my mom, do you think you could bring him back and have him, I'd like to put him in the show. So I got to dance with the Rockettes in a half-hour show before they stopped doing movies at Radio City. So I got to spend 6 weeks in New York with my mom and danced with the Rockettes and worked with this guy, Peter Gennaro. So that's probably one of my top things. And then I did get to dance in the Academy Awards once in the 80s when I lived in LA. And it was just so much fun to be all around those stars. And at the Academy Awards, I mean, it's obviously a very huge deal. So
Wow.
those are kind of my two big highlights.
I feel like I was with you just now. Like I felt like I traveled with you. And you know, I thank you so much for taking the time to do this. My last question for you is, why do you dance?
Because I love it so much. I didn't know much else growing up, right? My mom, although I do have a sibling, I have an older sister that's 14 years older than me that she never cared for it. My mother made her take, right? And then she had her two boys that loved it. And it's what I knew growing up. It was what I felt good at. I feel like I've recognized my limitations as a dancer over the years, and I've been able to adjust and make the most out of what I have with it. I love watching it. I love doing it. It's just part of me.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And we look forward to working with you in our next concert.
As do I.
And dancing and having you dance the duet with us. And thank you for your time. And we will see you guys at our next concert coming up in April, our Rebirth concert with Patrick Roddy dancing. And we will see you soon.